what we want to talk about is how do we establish that mindset of the folks that we're going to be dealing with. And, a lot of it is ROI, ROI, ROI. I got to see some ROI on my AI. And after you do that a few times, it reminds you of EIEIO and on this farm. So I'm not going to go that far. But what are we going to put in this three-part series? The first one is trying to establish the 10x mindset of the folks that are going to be involved here. The next one is going to be on quantifying the exponential value of AI, and that's going to be a challenge. As you know, you can probably identify a few things that you can hit a 10x multiplier, maybe a 20x multiplier, and sometimes even better. But we're going to try to figure out how to cover that and quantify those values so we can put them directly into the ROI calculations. Then the third part of the series is going to be building the business cases for those. We'll touch on a few business cases today, but next week after next, you're going to have to bring your own business case to the party, and we will see how we evaluate that and where that might fit into the overall 10x or greater improvement that we can gain with AI. Any comments so far?
You were talking about education. And one of the things I see that's going to be a really huge improvement with the use of AI is personalization from a tutoring standpoint. Listen to my kids as they went through college. They were very frustrated that they didn't have access to somebody who understood the professor's teaching techniques, where, they would be putting things on the board. It didn't match what was in the textbook. They would try to go home and study, and they were trying to figure it out. They try to talk to the teaching assistant, but he really didn't understand where the teacher was going. And then, of course, when you go to take any of the exams, you really couldn't paraphrase from the book. So I can see where AI can help with personalized tutoring as you start to see where a student is having trouble with a particular topic.
I think it's more important to understand that AI tools, especially for education, still require a lot of proof of concepting and making sure that you're not introducing any kind of untold bias. And so when we talk about aligning to a teacher's techniques, asking the AI model, how do you train that model, and what steps are needed? And we talk about a 10x increase in planning for AI. Where AI will have the biggest impact is in the way that we educate more than the education itself, if that makes sense. So the way that we educate can be delivered in a variety of different ways now. And the hyper-personalization that I would expect is, are you better visually? Are you better audibly? Mm-hmm. Right? And then changing the content and the courseware as a result of those interactions that you're having with the AI. And supposedly, again, it becomes a teaching assistant to learn you and all the other students, and it then can maintain that. There have been some interesting, case studies that are starting to come up. I know Harvard did one, and I know MIT did one, where they built a virtual teacher and are trying to run that. It's more appropriate for middle school and elementary school at this point, but I think it will get into higher education in a few years.
Whether it's automating repetitive tasks or improving decision making or whatever the case may be, it's an interesting approach that they've taken. Gartner also has got we've spoken about it also, to have their radar as opposed to the maturity curve that they have or the hype cycle that they have. But they chose a new method of displaying various things in the AI space, and the radar screen is probably one of the more interesting ones, and it's also similar to the 4 quadrants that most of these guys are using for evaluating. And this is my own version of modifying it. Let me back up and say, partners, that if it's highly important, it's going to be in the center. If it's less important, it's going to be on the outskirts of their of the radar. In my case, I had so many different areas of things that we already had use cases for that I couldn't put them all in the center because I wouldn't be able to read them. So imagine that these things are scattered around, going from the inside to the outside. I was just trying to get them all to be able to print inside the circles here. So for those of you that haven't seen this before, in the bottom, anything below midline, that's internal use of AI. Anything above the midline is external use of AI. Everything to the left is everyday use, and everything to the right is game changing. So that's what I've tried to do, is just as best I could at least say I'm in the right quadrant of where we want to be able to take and use these things for the maximum benefit and the maximum return. Okay. So when we start looking at some of the what I'll call 10x multipliers, I look at various industries, and I try to talk to a lot of folks in those industries and try to figure out where they're using them. And let me make sure that we understand using them successfully, not just trying to approach or not just trying to come up with ideas on where to use it. I had one investor friend, he says, I'm going around just trying to pick up use cases so I can go and so he was investing in one company that had 10 use cases and no proven capability to build anything, but they had 10 use cases. And it was like, okay, that's an interesting approach of investing money. Varun, you have a point. They talk about doing things with data, making sure you have the right algorithms and the right analytics and doing everything at scale. When you start moving some of these AI things from very simple backroom play toys out into enterprise scale, I think we're going to find some interesting opportunities as we begin to move that way. We're going to find ourselves at the last minute going, uh-oh, this really has to be private. We really can't do this in a public world. Some of the things that my team is working on are requirements gathering. And so if you have a situation where you need to gather requirements, like end-to-end requirements for customers or for enterprises, or have them be able to do their own, it's going to be critically important that we be able to do things like make sure that everything is consistent. It's going to give you the same answers every time. And by taking some of these models private, we've been able to do that. And Shashi's done a great job on tuning those to make sure that we get repeatability. And Shashi, you want to make any comments on that?
Yeah, I think basically, like Lee said, we have taken these models, run it offline, where we can take, if, for example, let's say you have requirements gathering, you have 8 people in the meeting trying to go over what they want. There's all these different perspectives coming in. So we can take all of this, especially if it's audio, I can take the audio, convert all of that to text, summarize that, get it to a point where it makes it back to the same group, but with the human in the loop, and you can aggregate and say, here's what we discussed, here's what it is, here's the requirements. And based on that, you can have this LLMs go query and question and ask about all the things you should have asked, what you missed, what you did, so on and so forth. So it's basically helping you build a better version of the product, so you don't miss out some of the risks associated with it, and you catch